Good morning and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. So what we're looking at today is going to be Triangle of Sadness, which a little history with me in this movie before I watch it. Which this is going up in the morning. I watched it last night, but this I recorded a few days in advance just so I have it ready. Um, I went and saw this movie. I was going to see this movie in the theater, if it came out. It made its premiere at New York Film Festival, if I remember correctly, and also went to Hampton's International Film Festival, which, if you listen to the show, you know I attended because I saw She Said there. Um, and I figured that seeing She Said would have been a better choice than seeing Triangle of Sadness or After Sun, which it turns out was not the right decision. It's just She Said had the best marketing um, for months leading up to it because it came from Universal and it was a major movie. So looking at this and being like, okay, so what are we going to do with this and how is this going to work? I decided not to see this movie. Then it got its wider release, but if you've listened to the show, there was that issue where my theater was down to 6 screens, I think, last year out of 17 because they were doing renovations. So unless it was a wide release, we didn't get a ton of smaller releases. It was all kind of just the major mainstream crap because you had that Black Adam on 2 screens throughout the month of October. So all of that kind of happens, and this movie got pushed by the wayside. And then when it did eventually hit theaters again, the screenings were all pretty late in the day. And I'm like, I just worked all day. Do I really want to go and sit in a movie theater on top of that at 10 o'clock at night and then have to go to work tomorrow morning? I'm getting old. Not exactly something that I can, do like I used to do in my youth. Um, so I decided not to do that either. And I found out that the movie was going to be hitting streaming. It did eventually hit Hulu, which is where it hit now. Now, in terms of what I expect out of this movie, I don't exactly know what to expect, and I think that that's kind of the most interesting thing about it. Um, I know next to nothing about this movie. I know Woody Harrelson's in it, or I think Woody Harrelson's in it. Maybe I'm mixing it up with another movie. And I've heard people compare it to White Lotus and have it be like, oh, this is a good thing to watch if you like White Lotus. But I also have not watched White Lotus, so I can't use that as a barometer to entry. I haven't watched the trailer. I know nothing about this movie going into it, which is going to make for an interesting experience. And because this movie is on Hulu now, um, the rating system won't apply. Because the rating system only applies to theatrical. And to say this isn't a theatrical release is inaccurate. It was released in theaters. However, now, for the sake of this review, we're going to count it as a streaming movie because I didn't see it in a theater and it's now out of theaters by and large. Um, I'll note if it's worth seeing in the theater, like if you get a screening of it, because they are still doing Oscar showings of various movies, but we'll see how that kind of tracks out. So we'll be back with that after I watch the movie, which will be after the spoiler warning noise. And again, like normal, we will be breaking it up into two parts: spoiler filled and spoiler free and spoiler filled. So we'll be back after that. And we're back, having now seen the movie. Um, I'm realizing now, having done a few of these, this is now the second one that I've pre-recorded this for. Let me rephrase that. I pre-recorded a intro part for yesterday's episode about what was the movie we saw yesterday? Operation Fortune. But then I ended up not having time to do it properly. So here we are. This is the first time, we're using the pre-recorded part by a lengthy margin. So, strap in for that. I don't remember what I said. Um, I did really enjoy this movie. I forgot until I saw it that I think her name's Charlie Dean. I don't remember her second last name, but I didn't know she was in this, and I think that that's probably the biggest tragedy about this movie. Because prior to when she passed last year, and I remember seeing on the news, I was like, oh shit, she was really young. She was in Black Lightning. She played Cyanide, and I was like, oh, that's a shame. She's really young, but and the thing is too, it's like when you watch a show like that, a lot of the performances are nothing particularly special. It's like they fill their role, they fill it well. They're basically soap operas, the CW shows, all those DC, shows that I enjoy watching. And look, let's just say it like it is. It's like the actors are doing their job and they're doing a moderately good job at times to a not so great time, not so great job at other times, and she filled the role. I had never seen her in anything else beyond that, so seeing her in this, um, is just kind of sad because she did such a great job in this. This could have really pulled her career into a new level. And she did such a great job in this movie as Yaya. Yeah, I mean, this movie it's not like I really liked it. I did really enjoy it, and I regret not seeing it in the theater. Um, because like as I'm watching, I'm like, this movie kind of tries to occupy a lot of the same space that Parasite does. It tries to do the haves versus have-nots in a dark comedic kind of story. So it is kind of a little bit of it is trying to occupy that same spot in the cultural zeitgeist, and I think it does a pretty good job of that. Um, it's just not as strong as Parasite is. And I think a lot of that comes from the idea of what happens when you try to replicate success. Um, and the example I go to with this is Green Day in the 2000s. In 2004, they had American Idiot, which was acclaimed, it's a fantastic album. I really, like, to this day, that album, there's one song on there that I won't listen to, but the rest of them, I love every song on that album. If it comes up on my Amazon Music, I won't skip. Then they do 21st Century Breakdown 5 years later, and it's trying to do a lot of the same thing. It's just the politics didn't work, and the album isn't as good, so it makes all the issues a little bit more glaring. Um, so it just comes off as it's trying too hard. And I think that that's kind of the same problem with this, where it's like we're trying to take something and replicate the success of something else without fully doing a post-mortem about why the original thing worked. Um, or like to keep it within the realm of what we usually talk about on this show, looking at what the DCEU did in competition with Marvel, starting with Man of Steel. They tried to recreate that success without really diving deep onto what made it work, besides just the universe is connected. And I think that that's kind of where this movie is. Um, that said, there's a lot of really great moments in it, like the dinner scene with what's it called with the two main characters, Yaya, and I forgot the other guy's name, and the two weapons manufacturers, where they're just talking about their thing, and it's like, oh, we have our top selling product, and then that happened, and the pesky UN regulations came, and we couldn't use this anymore. Um, and it's just like that kind of unfolding, because it's like the thing is with Yaya and with her boyfriend, whose name I'm forgetting again. Like they're kind of like foot in the door people, where they're like walking between the two worlds, so to speak, where it's like they are both the elite, where it's like she's on the boat and he's on the boat because she's an influencer, but they're also not super super rich. Like they have a window into both lives. And I think that that's kind of an interesting perspective to put the movie from, um, because like concurrently they don't relate to the crew, who are being seen as beneath everyone else, and they don't relate to the you know what's it called, like the elite, the upper echelon people who are all over the thing, who are like rich billionaires and all of that. um and then when they get to the point of the great equalizer, which is the life or death situation of the ship almost going down, them being destroyed by pirates, and then them being stuck on this deserted island, where this one crew member who survived is like, look, I'm gonna be in charge because no one else here knows how to do anything for themselves. So like I'm gonna be in charge here. So like the idea that like all of that kind of works, and even the beginning works. Just I feel like where Parasite is more subtle, this one is more ham-handed, to the point where Woody Harrelson and the Russian guy from Teen Spirit are exchanging capitalist and communist quotes with each other while sitting on the boat, while sitting at dinner, which is now in this vacant thing, um, because everyone's sick and everyone is left. It's just kind of a ridiculous situation. When you get to that point, it's like it's a little bit closer to um, what's it called? It's a little bit closer to Don't Look Up than it is to Parasite in terms of matching the political messaging in a story. Um, and that's kind of the fundamental difference, I think, between these two movies that really isn't addressed all that all that well. That's not to say this movie's bad. That's not to say this movie's bad. Um, I did really enjoy it, and it is worth a watch, especially if you already have Hulu, um, which a lot of people do. It's definitely. We're not going to do the star system because I don't think it's in theaters anymore. No, I think it still is in theaters. So I think we'll say it's definitely a 4-star. It's definitely not a movie that you should rush out, especially not a movie you should go out and try and see late at night at a movie theater where they'll charge you an arm and a leg to see a 10 o'clock screening. But if you can get an early screening, it's definitely worth seeing in a theater. So we'll say it's a 4-star movie because I think it is still playing. But it is on Hulu as well, which is probably the best way to watch this movie because it is long. It's 2.5 hours, which is a little long for what this movie is, and I don't think we necessarily need it to be as long as it is. But I think that's a good place to wrap up on Triangle of Sadness. Check it out. It's available on Hulu, and we'll be back later today with a new episode about the various subscription models that they're using in video games. And we'll talk about that later tonight. So until then, have a great rest of your day.